What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer. Taking a look at the new Mermail Deep Sea Atlantean support. I think they've always been played together. I don't know why they're, different archetypes necessarily. They all have very similar effects, and it's kind of like hard to remember the names. But in any case, a bunch of new support cards just came out, and they're really good. And it's kind of hard to understand what these cards do in context when you're reading them. So I found a couple combos on Twitter, and I'll link them in the description below. It's from Japanese Twitter. I don't know why, but now like combo videos on my Twitter feed, and they're really cool. Like as soon as new cards are announced, like these guys on Twitter are right on top of it to show you these combos. I'm going to tell you my thoughts on these and the most interesting parts of them, and maybe where I think the combo can go in a different direction from the two I'm going to show you. But I do think that these two showcase different avenues that you can go through, and I'm going to show or highlight my favorite differences or like things are like, oh, I think you need to do this more, things like that. So Deep Sea Diva by itself is now a full combo. So Deep Sea Diva lets you special summon a level 3 or lower Sea Serpent from the deck. And of course, like everything runs through this card, Atlantean Prince. You can send an Atlantean monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then you add an Atlantean card from deck to hand, which is just a really crazy effect. So you can go ahead and use that effect. Send the new card. This is Mermail Shadow Bodyguards. If this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, which of course you just did, special summon a level 4 or lower Atlantean or Mermail monster from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except water monsters. But we haven't even finished resolving this effect yet, so you get to also add Dragoons. Non-once per turn, anytime it's sent to the graveyard in any facet, detaching material from an XYZ card, being, discarded, for, which is basically what this whole deck revolves around, you get to just, like, keep adding cards, Sea Serpent cards. So that's going to trigger the new card. So you get to bring out a Mermail from the deck. That's going to be Abyss Spike. So when this card is normal or special summon, you can discard one water monster to the graveyard, add one level 3 water monster from your deck to your hand. Very generic, right? Especially just saying water monsters. But in any case, you're going to go ahead and discard. So like I said, every time Dragoons is discarded, it lets you add a Sea Serpent, a level 4 or lower. So in this case, it's going to be Deep Sea Sentry. Again, I think this is where maybe it starts branching out a little bit too far. All of these cards so far, I'm like, yep, I'm there with you. I see it. I see the vision. This card's like, it's okay. We'll get there. This is another one of the new support cards. You can attribute it from your hand and an Atlantean or Mermail monster from your hand or field. And then you take a level 7 fish, Sea Serpent, or Aqua monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. And then you're waterlocked, which is totally fine. So you can go ahead and use that effect. So you're going to tribute the Prince, which of course is insane because this even has a tribute effect. It's already given you so much advantage, and now you just get a little bit more. If this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, you can target an Atlantean monster in your graveyard, special summon it. And that's really, really important because you can bring out Dragoons, which is a level 4 water monster. And I don't know if I talked about this yet, but the card that you added to your hand, you didn't special summon it, is Mermail Abystis. I don't know if that's how you say it. But you can go into Bahamut Shark, 2 level 4 water monsters, detaching the Dragoons, which of course can bring you out. I think it's like a level or a rank 3 or lower water. You're not actually going to use this effect. Of course, you don't have any material. It's also really hard to just bring on naturally, but it's going to come up with a new card. Dragoons was detached, so it was sent to the graveyard. So it's going to add another Sea Serpent monster from deck to hand. This is where I messed up, so I have to fix that real quick. So putting that back on there. Oops. And then you can go ahead and overlay the new XYZ monster. Once returned, you can also XYZ summon this card. Who knows what it's going to be called? Using one Atlantean or Mermail XYZ monster you control. Transfer its materials. You can bounce cards your opponent controls. It's like a souffle card, Medolce. I think that's what it's called. But also the super mega important part that is crazy. If this card is if this XYZ summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can discard one card to the graveyard, special summon 3 level 3 or lower fish, Sea Serpent, or Aqua monsters from the graveyard. That is absurd. So you can go ahead and go into the Marincess Coral Anemone, and you can use the effect of Mermail Abystis. So when this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish one card from your opponent's hand face up. And that's actually, it is important. So I use tokens to represent discarded cards. So the card that you get to add to your hand is Mermail Abyssish. Oh gosh, I'm not even going to try. This card, you can target one Mermail monster you control, special summon any number or level 4 or lower Mermail monsters from your deck whose combined levels are less than or equal to the level of that monster. Sent to the graveyard. So you get to Monster Reborn here. And then you're going to go ahead and go into the new Link monster. So all this new support is like super bananas. Every single card is good. So you just go ahead and link that off. Your opponent cannot target water monsters. This card points to with card effects. So that's kind of cool, I guess. If a water monster is sent to the graveyard to activate a card effect, you can take a Abyss equip spell from your deck or graveyard and either add it to your hand or equip it to this card. So there is a spell negate equip card. So that's kind of cool. So, because that was sent to the graveyard, the XYZ monster brings back 3. So that's the important part. This is going to equip the Abyss Scale of Mizuki. So, when a spell card is activated, or when it resolves, you can negate the activation and then send it to the graveyard. If I'm not mistaken, this card negates Super Poly, because it doesn't negate the activation, it negates the effect. So, that is pretty cool. Darker a little more, obviously, is also very important. There's also a trap version of this, but I don't think you would play that. You can go ahead and go into the Prima Donna. So this card says you can target one of your opponent's banished cards, add it to your hand, or special summon one level 4 lower water monster from your deck. And if you do, they basically add it back to their hand. Okay, so you can go ahead and tribute that card. So it's going to help you bring out 2 from the deck. And that's going to return that banished card back to their hand, and then you get to bring something out. Now, this is funny, and this is like I said, I think this is kind of silly, especially because you play so many extra cards I don't think you would normally play. I think it'd at least be a little bit of fluff, and maybe not cards you'd want to see. Like, this card is one that you probably wouldn't want to see. Mermail, Abyss, Turge. They have the weirdest names. This one is kind of strange, you know? Like, this one I'm like, okay. All the other cards, yeah, I can follow, but I think there's probably a way to streamline this a little bit, but this is hilarious for sure. The Deep Sea Diva is awesome. And then what you do, and I forgot to put the card in, it's just like it's so annoying trying to make these combos if you forget something. You link those 4 off, okay, and then you get to go into Atlantis. And there's like a hidden effect of this card that like, I'm pretty sure this card's going to get banned at some point. But you can only control one of these cards. The important part is the one that doesn't banish to bring everything back is during your battle phase, or during the battle phase, you can destroy cards on the field up to the number of co-linked monsters on the field. So the idea is that it's co-linked here, and then your opponent can only normal summon, right? Because it can't special summon. They try to normal summon to get over this, and you popped a card. And remember, this was only from 1 card, right? This is a 1-card combo, not 1.5, just a singular card. So your opponent would normal summon, go to the battle phase, try to get over this, and the Atlantis would pop it. And then you have everything else essentially to stop Dark Ruler no more, or whatever the case may be. So kind of hilarious. The second one's a little bit more grounded for sure. So there's tons of ways you can get here. I'm pretty sure in the normal summon, the Atlantean Prince also does essentially the same thing, just like in a different order. But this one I like, but there's also some like weaknesses with it too. So at the end, I'll talk about how I think you can kind of combine them in a sense. So normal summon the Abyss Spike. So this is normal summon, you discard a water monster, add a level 3 water monster from deck to hand. So Deep Sea Minstrel, this card lets you discard another water monster to look at your opponent's hand and banish it until the end phase. So Dragoons, of course, was sent to the graveyard. So lets you add the new one. So the new one you can go ahead and discard with Minstrel, so you get full hand knowledge. You know what your opponent has, and you can snipe something. So let's say they had a Nibiru, like sighting in. Well, they don't have it anymore. When this card is sent to the graveyard from a water monster, it lets you special summon one from the deck. So, of course, it's going to be Atlantean Prince. Atlantean Prince is going to send to the graveyard and add one. So, Dragoons was once again sent to the graveyard. It's not a once per turn. This time you can add Mooling Glacier. So, if you have exactly 5 water monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon the card and your opponent randomly discards 2. Keep in mind, you've already sniped 1 card out of their hand. So, they're going to be losing 2 more. So, your opponent, like, if they didn't hand trap you already, it's over. So you can go ahead and use that new card's effect to tribute itself from the hand, and then 1 from the field to add from deck to hand. So you can add this Ice Jade Agarin. Oh gosh, so bad. And then, of course, because this was tributed, lets you Monster Reborn something. So now you have exactly 5 water monsters in the graveyard. Okay, you can see it here. So that's 5. So your opponent's discarding 2 more. Again, I'm using tokens to represent cards that are being discarded. They'll never get those back. The Deep Sea Minstrel does let your opponent add it back from hand. And in this combo, you don't go through the synchro, the Deep Sea Synchro which I think you should, because I think you get to add it to your hand. So your opponent's losing another card. Or you can special summon from the deck a water monster. Like, there's so many options that you can do with that. Dragoons was once again sent to the graveyard. This time you can add the XYZ Slidolphin. So when you XYZ summon, you get to special summon from the hand. So of course you're going to immediately go ahead and special summon this card. Detaching 2, and this is where I'm like, I don't know. It is discard fodder. 2 free discard fodders. But you can only add from deck to hand for this card. That's kind of part of the problem, I think. You get the free special summon, and then you can link those off. So the new XYZ and the XYZ Slidolphin. It's funny, like XYZ cards being used for link summoning. Hilarious. Discard 1, bring back 3, so you can discard the Armor Call, which is pretty cool. Like, you don't necessarily need to use it during your opponent's turn. You can always just use this card, and now this is live. So you can go ahead and you get to add an XYZ card from deck to hand. So it's important because it's a water monster, which you'll see in a second. So you can discard a card and make all monsters you currently control level 7. So there's so much stuff that you can do with that. This is a Mermail exclusive, 2 level 7 water monsters. And once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach material from this card and negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Super duper imperm. And I did want to show this, like, your zoning is super important. Like, in this case, I had to move it, but if I was playing in a real duel, obviously, I wouldn't be able to do this. So, like, where you place your monsters is actually super duper important. I wanted to showcase that versus fixing it, not being able to mention it because I forgot. This is Adamancipator Dragite, so this is another spell negate. Go into the new Link monster. Agarin is going to go ahead and discard to special summon itself into token, which of course triggers this to let you grab the equipped spell from deck to hand, and that special summons a token, and then you can go into the Ice Shade Agarin. So this is when your opponent activates a card, you banish it. So if it's a field spell, it doesn't go through. If it's a continuous spell, it doesn't go through. Continuous trap, obviously. None of your cards can be destroyed by card effects, and they cannot also be banished. So 2 really good effects. This is going to be an attach, because you do have the full armored XYZ in the graveyard. This is going to negate, it's like a super duper imperm, spell negate, slash trap negate, another spell negate. So pretty good, pretty good. Now, I don't think this is the pinnacle, and again, I think there's almost like a mixture between the two. You know, forcing your opponent to banish that with the minstrel, like instead of letting them add it back to their hand, you know, maybe you can use it, or maybe you let them add it back to their hand, and then you get to, you know, do something a little bit more with it instead of just bringing out like a generic water. Maybe you go into the, you know, the, I can't think of the name right now. Ice Barrier, good lord. You can special summon an Ice Barrier monster, because those also discard for cost, right? The main water monster in that does. So though I'm going to like test around with this, but I do think this is a good display. There's so many things that you can do. Of course, the whole discard mechanic is the most important part, but the new cards give you so much flexibility, and, you know, especially highlighted by this card right here, right? The Bodyguards, whatever it ends up being called. Like, this is probably the most important card, but the Link monster is also super duper good. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I will see you guys next time.